One thing that I freaking love about makeup indie brands is they can do a grungy eyeshadow palette like nobody else. Indie brands make the best eyeshadow palettes anyways, in my honest opinion, but I really freaking love a grungy palette. So today I decided to dig through my collection and find my top 20 grungy eyeshadow palettes. I'm really excited to show you guys some of my favorites. If you're interested, then just keep watching.
We don't need to be worried. We don't need lots of money. So tonight put your hands in the air. Act like you just don't care.
If this is your first time here, my name is Heather. I love all things makeup, especially colorful makeup and indie brands. If you guys love those things too, I really hope you will subscribe. Don't forget to click the little bell though so you can be notified of all my future uploads. I have a lot of really cool stuff coming up, and I want you to be a part of the Ashes on My Lashes family. But let's go ahead and start talking about some of these palettes. So I do have codes with some of these brands. If I do, I will have it popped up here on the screen, and I will also have it all linked down below in my description box. So to get started on the palettes, you will see one specific brand in here multiple times, and there's a reason why. They just have one of the greatest eyeshadow formulas, and they come up with the coolest concepts for eyeshadow palettes, the coolest color stories, and I always feel so inspired by their releases, so I pick up a lot of them. So what brand, you may ask? Well, that would be Unearthly Cosmetics. This is the Daily Grind palette, and it is so beautiful. To me, a grungy palette has like these mustardy undertones. I love the pops of green. It's like grunge with a twist. I feel so inspired by this palette. It is a new one to me, but I have created looks with it, and I think it performs perfectly. It does have the new updated Unearthly Cosmetics shimmer formula, which also happens to be one of my favorites. I just freaking love this palette, and it's like the perfect grunge. And I could say the same about this one. This is the Unearthly Lore palette. Now, I have the older version, which I also think is incredible, but the newer ones do have the updated shimmer formula. But this, if this isn't a grungy palette, I don't know what else is. It's definitely grunge to me. Again, with the mustards, the more orangey tones, this beautiful shade up here. In black, you can create a gorgeous smoky eye. I've had so much fun with this palette. I love the artwork on Unearthly Cosmetics palettes as well. I just think it's beautiful. So the next one, I decided to throw this in last minute because it's not really grungy, but it's grungy enough for me. But it is the Diveroon Cosmetics Gloomy Gardens, and this color story is freaking beautiful. You could definitely get some grungy looks out of it. I love this green shade up here in the corner. The shimmers are really beautiful. I had a great time playing with this palette. Now, it's not the most grungy out of all the ones that I'm going to show you, but this is one of those universal palettes that you could really do looks with all year long. Like, you could totally get some really cool fall looks out of this as well. You could get winter looks. It's just beautiful. I love the concept. I love the packaging and everything. It's one that I'm really happy I added to my collection. So next, we have another Unearthly Cosmetics palette, and it is the Fairy Frolic. This one's been recently updated too. It has the smaller pans and the new updated shimmer formula. Now, this older formula that's in this palette is not my favorite. The one they have now, the shimmers are way more like impactful and stuff. So I would like to replace this with the one that's on the site now. But this color story is so freaking grungy, so perfect, and I love everything about it. It reminds me of fall. The looks you can get out of it are incredible. And like I said, I do want to get the new one, but this one is pretty good as well. So coming in next, we have the Adept Cosmetics Sumerian Sunset. To me, fall palettes are grungy. I love like the undertones of the mustards, the greens, the earthy colors, and that's what you get with this one. And the multi-chromes in here are freaking awesome. If my lighting doesn't wash them out, because I am having issues with it. I am working on it, so please just hang in there. Don't give up on me yet. I'll figure it out eventually, but This palette is so freaking beautiful. Adept has such a great shimmer formula. The matte formula isn't my favorite. These ones aren't very buildable. It's what you see is what you get. And I do like a more buildable matte. But if you're someone who doesn't do a lot of dramatic looks, I think you would really love the mattes. It's all like a personal preference thing. But this palette is beautiful and I highly recommend it. It's just for me and my preferences, I do need darker shades to add with the mattes. It's not a standalone palette, but it is one that I highly recommend. So next I have 3 palettes from Odin's Eye. The first one being the Merry Christmas palette. I think this is so grungy. You could get the coolest fall looks out of this. It is so freaking beautiful. I love the undertones of 90%, 98% of the shades in here. I just think it's so freaking beautiful. I really enjoy the Odin's Eye formula, and I think this is one of their best releases. And it's one I'm definitely happy to have in my collection. Like you can see the shifts in some of those. It's just so beautiful. The color story is so inspiring. It's definitely like what you see on the outside is what you get on the inside. I love it. I think it's great. And now the other 2 Odin's Eye palettes. Let me just say, nobody can do a better grungy color story than Angelica Nyquist. These are freaking incredible. This is my favorite Odin's Eye palette. It is the Hella palette. Unfortunately, this one is no longer available. You can see I've hit pan in a few shades. I've had such a freaking blast playing with this one. And as I was saying, we have the undertones and stuff of these shades. So beautiful. I love the pink and the green together. I've done like bright pink and green looks before, but I've never done it like with these undertones of greens, like these olive and mossy shades. I just think it's so freaking beautiful. This is one of my favorite palettes, and I will keep it with me for the rest of my life, hopefully. And then next is the Trick or Treat palette. Pretty sure this one's still available. If it is, I'll have it in everything else I've talked about in this video that's available, linked down below. But this one is freaking gorgeous. I love the mustard colors. You've heard me say it 100 times. This blackened olive shade down here is so freaking incredible. So smoky, so sexy, so gorgeous. I love it. I love it so much. Obviously, or it wouldn't be in this video. I'm pretty sure I only have one palette from Glamlight, but it is the Chucky Crazy in Love. Now, I bought this last fall, so I was real late to this release, but this is such a sexy, smoky, grungy palette, in my honest opinion. Pairing this palette with some oranges, like, I always bend over and pick up palettes in my videos, but can't help myself. But pairing the Crazy in Love palette with this palette created one of the best looks that I have ever done. This is the Garfield palette by Glamlight. This is my favorite Glamlight palette. It's so beautiful. But I created one of my favorite looks. It was so smoky and grungy and beautiful. I could not recommend it more. And both of these palettes have the really, really good Glamlight formula in them, and not the one. You know what I mean. I'm pretty sure these are the last 3 palettes I have in here from Unearthly Cosmetics. Like I said, they are one of my favorite brands. The first one I wanted to talk about is Sorcerer's Smoke. These palettes, all the palettes that have come out in this longer packaging, I love them so much. Sorcerer's Smoke is so grungy and beautiful. I love like this mustardy brown shade and these olive greens over here. You could get such a gorgeous, grungy, smoky, sexy look out of this palette. It's one of my favorites, and to me, this is a neutral palette. But for when I do want a neutral look, this one is definitely a go-to. Next, there's no way I could do this video without talking about Fall Magic. This is the redone version, the revamped. I'm losing all the words in my vocabulary. This palette is so freaking stunning. I love this mustard shade. I love the shade Earthy. The shimmers are so freaking beautiful. I wish I could just truly capture them. You can see I've hit pan in this green one here. I've created so many looks with this palette. I've had so much fun with it, and I truly cannot recommend it more. Now, this is one of the palettes that made me fall head over heels completely in love with Unearthly Cosmetics, and it is the reason why I'm such a diehard fan for the brand, but it is the Weirdos palette. I love this. It's not available anymore, unfortunately. I do wish you would revamp it and bring it back. This multichrome down here, it's like a black and green, and it switches over to that purple shade. This is such a grungy, gorgeous, beautiful palette. This shade up here called Glamour is really beautiful too. But I love this palette so much. I've gotten so much use out of it. I love everything about it. It's been a while since I've gotten to use it. But like I said, this collection, there was 2 other palettes that I picked up during that time. Those palettes are what made me fall so in love with them. And this palette is what made me fall in love with Colourpop. It is the Raw Beauty Christie collab, the At Foresight palette. This palette is like perfect for fall, but it's also perfect if you're looking for that grungy look. Now, this is just like inspiration to maybe pull it out if you already own it, because this one isn't available anymore either. But man, it is beautiful. And I have another palette in here that's very similar. So if you're in love with this color story, you might be interested in the other one. We'll go ahead and talk about that one now. It is the Lunar Beauty Moonshroom palette. Their vibes are really, really similar. And like I said, I just knocked this whole stack over. But you can get a really similar look out of these two. So if you're into this one, you might want to check out this one. I really enjoy the Lunar Beauty formula. This is my favorite palette from them at the moment. And I'm excited to see what else they come out with. But highly recommend you guys check that one out if you haven't yet. Now let me restack all these palettes. BEAUTE is a brand I haven't heard a lot from lately, but this is my favorite palette from them. It is the Ambiance palette, and this is a grungy lover's dream. I don't know if it's still available. I think it is. If so, I'll have it linked down below. But this came out in the fall of 2022, and I've been in love with this palette ever since. I would like to see them release something soon. Like I said, I haven't seen anything from them in a while, but maybe I've missed some releases or whatever, but this palette is beautiful. I really enjoy their formula as well. And this is another one of my favorite brands. It is the Bella Beauté Bar Basic Witch. I'm pretty sure this one's available now, but this color story is so grungy and gorgeous. I love everything about it. This shade up here called Grimoire is so beautiful. I've created such cool looks out of this. Bella Beauty Bar is one of my favorite brands. Like I said, I just love their formula, their shimmers, and their mattes. The color stories they create are freaking so inspiring. I could not recommend that brand more. I suggest just checking out the site and seeing what you really love. We only have a few more left to go, but next is the Lunar Beauty and Laura Lee Los Angeles Full Fantasy collab. This is like the perfect grungy palette for someone who loves colorful makeup. It's the perfect grungy palette for someone who loves neutral makeup. I feel like they really hit the nail on the head with this one and made sure it was something that everyone could love. I think this palette is beautiful. I really enjoyed the eyeshadow formula in here. That blush palette that came with this collection is really good as well. So are the lipsticks. Mora is my favorite lipstick shade, in case you guys were curious. But I just love this. I've had a blast playing with it, and I love the undertones that they picked. It's such a gorgeous palette. This next one is a brand that I'm quickly growing to love a whole lot. They have a new release coming out. I do plan on picking it up when it is released, but we have the Eyeshadow Rain Cosmetics Groovy Garden, and it's got mushrooms in it, guys. You know how much I freaking love mushrooms. This palette is a whole freaking vibe. It's so grungy. The shimmers are so freaking good. I had so much fun working with this one, and looking at it makes me want to wash my makeup off and create another look, because this is so freaking beautiful. I just love it so much. Let me know what your favorite Eyeshadow Rain palette is. I would love to know. The next palette is another favorite brand. I have every palette they've released except for one, but it is the Cosmic Beauty Muse palette formerly known as Cosmic Brushes, but this palette is freaking gorgeous. They have one of the best eyeshadow formulas that I have tried, one of my top favorites, and their palettes are relatively affordable considering it is an indie brand. They retail for $30, $35, and the typical indie palette is going for anywhere between $60 and $100 at the moment. So you're really not going to get anything better than this, especially for its price. The freaking mattes in here are incredible. The shimmers are so smooth and beautiful and highly reflective. Most of her palettes also have a multi-chrome in them as well. This one does not, but I love this palette, and I think you guys would really love it too if you love the color story. And then lastly, if you guys are a fan of Tarte, I recently tried out this palette this is the Tarte Man-Eater After Dark, and this is the perfect grungy neutral palette. I was really surprised at how much I really enjoyed the formulas in this palette. The shimmers were really beautiful. The mattes were super easy to work with. So, I mean, I'm not much of a neutral girly, but I do like the grungy twist to this palette. And like I said, I was really surprised at how well this performed. So I'm interested in trying out some more from Tarte because that one did me well. But that is it. Those are all of my palettes that have a grungy twist to them. Like I said, I freaking love a grungy eyeshadow look, a grungy makeup look. I have some really cool grungy lipsticks that I love. I just love eyeshadow palettes, and I'm excited that I finally got to share some of my absolute favorites with you guys. Now, I wanted to also tell you what is on my eyes. Today, I mixed the Secret Garden palette with the Wizard palette from Fantasy Cosmetica, and I created this gorgeous look. I used the shade Telepathy, and I blended it out with Incantation up here. And then for the inner portion of my eye, I use the shade Thistle, and I blended it out with Water Lily. And then on my lid, I have Secrecy, Oasis. These shades are so beautiful. And in the inner corner, I put the shade Meteor Storm, and I came out with this really cool look. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. This one has just captivated me lately. It is so freaking gorgeous, and I really love the Wizard palette from Fantasy Cosmetica too. But let me know what you guys think about these palettes. What are your favorite grungy palettes? I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this eyeshadow look? But thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, bye.